This is your Pain Game podcast, where we talk about the game of living in and with chronic pain and trauma, getting to the heart of how to heal. I am your host, Lyndsay Soprano. On this show, I plan on discussing with doctors, chronic pain patients, holistic practitioners, loved ones, and anybody that is interested in having their voice heard in the chronic pain and trauma world that we live in. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and my favorite people on the planet, my VIPs. One of the two households that I was raised in was a religious one, a very religious one. Not crazy religious, but not like, we only go on Christmas and Easter. It was a legitimate religious household. We went to church, we did the things. In putting together this episode, I had to think about trying to remember what I took positively from my childhood when it came to religion and church. I came up with nothing, unfortunately. I came up with a lot of negative things about the church and religion specifically. Not God, not Jesus, not Buddha, whatever it is. It was religion that ended up being my problem from my childhood into my teenage years, my college years. And then I finally dropped out of church right after college. I just couldn't do it anymore. And a few years ago, actually, I finally had to talk to my mom about the fact that I didn't necessarily believe in God. And she lost it. She was not thrilled about this information. But when I talked to her about it, I said, but Mom, I'm agnostic. Okay. And the reason I am is because I don't know. And neither do you. But that's where faith comes in, right? Faith comes in where we say, I'm going to believe in something and I don't necessarily know if it's true or not. And I think that's epic. I think that's awesome that people can do that. I have faith in my spouse that he's going to follow through on the things that he's done. Has he done them? Not necessarily. And vice versa. So what do we do here with this, right? What do we do where you've been in a church religious environment like myself and really, really tried hard to be part of that community? But what I was finding at a very young age, and it went all through college, was that all the church-going folk who were supposed to be protecting me, watching after the people around me, and I'm going to use specifically in terms of young women, how the mountains and mountains of abuse, sexually, emotionally, and physically, were happening in the churches that I was involved in. So I bounced, as I would think anybody would. But unfortunately, we're surrounded by people that don't bounce. So what the hell are we going to do? And for those of you that don't necessarily know what being agnostic means, I'm going to tell you what it is. Is it a person who believes that nothing is known or can be known of the existence or nature of God or anything beyond material phenomena? A person who claims neither faith nor disbelief in God, which is totally true and where I'm coming from. I believe that there is a reason we forge friendships with people. There is a reason why I am toasting Prosecco with my Topo Chico guest today. We are celebrating our lives. We are celebrating all of what, quote unquote, God is around us. I just can't deal with the religion side of it, right? So without further ado, I would like to introduce you to my guest today, Emily Celis of the nonprofit Sage Holistic Health and Wellness Center here in Southern California. Hello and salute to you, my love. We decided to do a Friday salute to each other today.
Cheers.
Oh my gosh.
Nice
so let's get, oh my gosh, it's so good to have you here. So let's get down. I didn't even have a sip of my drink. Let me do it.
You better take a sip, girl.
I deserve it after this week.
Real. Yeah.
Let's get down and dirty in the world of spiritual health and how we can kind of escape this gaslighting that kind of deliberately and systematically occurs in religions around the world. And so here you are. I'm rolling out the red carpet for you, babe. I'd like to start talking about your religious background and experience and how kind of the generations of religion that you've been part of kind of ended up breaking your spirit a bit. Let's take it from there. I know that's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot to unpack.
Break it down.
Let's get to it.
It is so nice to be here. I love our chats. It is so amazing how you bring such a realness to you and to your followers. Hello to everybody. So I was raised in the LDS faith. My personal experience, I loved my religion growing up. I had a very, very close connection to my belief system. My family is 7th generation, so they literally are part of the complete history and making of the LDS faith, which is one of the main religions as far as number of people in a religion goes today. So yeah, I was raised in that environment, very, very devout to the T. I mean, there is somewhat of differentiation of level in how LDS someone is. They don't like to use the term Mormon anymore, so I try and be respectful of that. But how Mormon you are, there's not too much fluctuation in it. You're either in or you're either out, and I think that's one of the challenges with it.
Right, you're in the club or you're out of the club.
Yeah,
right. And LDS is Latter-day Saints, just for people that may or may not know what LDS is. Yeah. I mean, I got to help you out here because religion has royally screwed you up.
Please fill in the gaps. I feel like that's been one of my favorite sayings in my adult years is when I don't know what the fuck people are talking about. I'm like, look, I was raised under a rock. I truly, and it's called Mormonism.
Look, I'm drinking Topo Chico. Okay.
There's nothing wrong with Topo Chico.
No, there's nothing wrong with it. In fact, let's have another one.
I know, right? But so that was my upbringing as far as the religion goes. Basically you're doing something every day of the week. I mean, Monday is family home evening. Wednesday is mutual, where you kind of get together with all the kids. Sunday is 3 hours of church. You're doing service all the time. It is a big part of your life. I mean, it was our whole community, right? It was everyone that was involved in our lives. I did know people that were outside of the church, but they don't really encourage relationships and friendships outside of the church. I had friends, but I couldn't play with them too much. I had to really stay focused with my friends within the church. So it was all of my brain. It was everything of my life. It was everything I had committed everything to. And when you're born into this religion, there's a trajectory that you're going to go. This is what you're going to do. And it's different for men versus women. But as a female growing up in this environment, I was going to grow up and have 6 babies and raise them in the church. And that's kind of what you do. So
God, doesn't that sound fun?
To some, maybe. But that was, I don't know. What else do you want to know? That's just kind of where I came from. I lived in Illinois, moved to Utah, where it's even more kind of intense, more, densely populated. And then I, in my great escape, moved to California in my early 20s. So.
Yeah, and we're definitely going to get to the great escape, because I think you using the word escape is a very good word, because I feel like breaking free, escaping, leaving, freedom, like all of those things, which is so sad, because when you think about religion as a whole, every religion has its own rules. It has its own criteria. If you don't do this, then you're going to this. If you don't do that, you're going to this. If you do this, this is going to happen. Like, there's always this, am I ever going to be able to be who I am? Am I ever going to be accepted? Am I ever not going to be judged? Am I ever going to truly feel love? Am I always going to have my hair braided? That's actually the most pressing question that I have. But you know what I mean? When you're put into these situations as a young woman specifically, this is how you're going to live your life. This is what you're going to be. You know nothing other than that. So why would it be wrong? So when you go through these motions, and I remember I dated a kid that was a kid around the corner from me that I grew up with. I dated him. He was Mormon, LDS, and he wanted me to go to church with him. And my family was very, very Baptist Christian. It's weird, Baptist white people. I'm not really sure how that all worked out, but whatever. Very, very Baptist, couldn't dance, couldn't sing, couldn't do these things, what have you. Then I was dating this guy, and he was Mormon, and it was like, my parents don't like you. I'm like, well, that's kind of mean, because I'm fun. Oh yeah, I'm way too fun for them. But it was a whole thing. And he was like, can you at least go to church with me? And my parents were like, nope, not a chance are you going to that church. And so hindsight, when I was thinking about what we were going to talk about today, I was thinking about him in particular because he's still part of my life on daily, actually, randomly, honestly. But it was so weird because my parents asked me to ask him what that was going to be like for me as a girl going to the church. And it was, well, you're going to show up and you're going to be separated from the men. That was the only thing that I remember to this day about what that was. So when you're talking about your particular religion, it was in LDS as quote unquote Mormon, whatever we're going to be calling it to make sure everybody's happy. How was that like for you being a young girl? Because you got married in the temple very young. Yeah, and it was very
20.
Bizarre. Yeah, 20 years old. Like, what? But you knew nothing other than that. So at that point, is that when that all started to shift for you? Like, what happened there where you started to look at your religion and how you were raised and go, I need to question this? When did you get curious?
Yeah, no, it's so funny because it's like we were just talking about the Great Escape, and it's like,
right, it
is a great escape, but it's not this like thing that you just do out of the blue, right? Usually
you have to plan for it, like a divorce.
A religious transition. This is like, I say that it was a good decade of my life where it took me a decade to really be able to stand firmly in my choices and my decisions, because you grow up in this environment where you're constantly questioning your own thoughts and you're always deferring to another power figure, right? An authority figure, whether it's the men in the church, the bishop, the stake president, the prophet. They're all men. And so you're either deferring to that or you need to defer to God or Jesus, or you're not being this or that enough. So it was, I mean, it's never just like one moment that is this thing that just like kind of ends it. But I do remember, as I've put pieces together, kind of looking back, that when my mother passed away, so my mom passed away when I was 13, she had breast cancer, she had been sick. And she passed away right after we had moved to Utah. So I was 12 when we moved to Utah. My mom passed away a year after we moved. It was a really big,
that's hard.
lot of shifting, moving parts at that tender age.
13
oh my gosh.
years old
I feel
girl.
so bad for little me.
Yeah, no kidding. I do too, and I didn't even know you. Yeah. Utah's rough as a whole.
So in that space, my mom passes. My dad goes into major grieving. And then 6 months later starts dating. And then a year later gets married. And they were, together for like 25 years. So then I'm kind of in this space of like going along with it because I kind of need a mom. That'd be nice to have a mom, right? But anyway, it's like I learned that he was going to be marrying her in the temple. So then I was like, I remember asking my dad, well, so what about mom then? Because Mormons believe, the LDS faith believes that when you get married, you're sealed together for time and all eternity, right? So my mom and dad were already sealed, and that was like first wife spot was taken. So this would have been second wife, right?
Yeah.
So then it just opened that whole thing about polygamy and all of that, right?
Which of course.
Is not practiced today by the LDS faith. There are fundamental LDS members that still do practice polygamy, and everyone knows about all of that.
Yeah, FLDS. I'm completely obsessed with watching documentaries about it. I have been for many, many, many years because I used to live in Utah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's right.
I lived in Park City, which is, like we're the heathens. We're the heathens of Utah. That's the other place I was raised. Place. Yeah, that's a fun place. Yeah, you go up there, you get drunk on your this much booze. Because everything in Utah is measured.
Boost. You need this much boost to get this drunk. Yeah, exactly. So anyway, that was kind of one of my things where I'm like, wait, what is this? It felt like it kind of threw me into a little bit of a feminist kind of space where I started really like my inner girl started coming out and being like, hey, that is not okay. I am not okay with mom being like having to share dad, or me thinking about who I don't want to have to share. This is not my thing. I'm not. Yeah,
like I don't want my potential spouse. Right? I don't want to share him either. Yeah, that is an incredible like question, especially like from a religious perspective, we all think about God and the Bible and all of that. And like, this is your spouse and this is all it is. And that's why LDS gets a bad rap from FLDS. And so that is definitely a delineation that we need to make, that where you came from is not from the polygamy side of things. True. But that doesn't mean that it's not part of it. But it still lives in
their doctrine. And
absolutely.
That was what I always had, from that point forward, always had a hard time. So I felt like, and again, that's also, you know, it's very catered to men in that it's like, well, how is the women having any rights? Are they okay with that? Is mom okay with this? Like, how do you know she's okay with this? You can't ask her. Did you guys talk about this before she died? Like, I'm like,
did you guys drink Topo Chico together? Like what?
Absolutely not. But yeah, so I mean, there was like these little things along the way that would come in and kind of rattle me a bit. And like when I did end up getting married, so he and I have divorced since then, many moons ago. But and I'm grateful for the experience, because it's really what brought me to my decision. Ultimately, like going through the temple is something that you sing songs about when you're in Sunday school. From when you're a little kid, you're singing these songs about, I want to see the temple, I'm going there someday. Like there's all these things that they build and build and build. And then you go to the temple and it freaked me out, to be honest. Like I was
it's creepy.
I've never heard any of this. I've never worn any of these clothes that you're asking me now to wear, or done any of these rituals. And this was just very like, and this is what I've been waiting my whole life for, like trying to be worthy to go to the temple so I can get married and like do all of these things. And I'm like, felt like it had nothing to do with my spirituality. It had nothing to do with anything that I'd been taught. So that was another one of those moments where I just remember like having that experience and seeing my friend who was there. She had gone with me to go to the temple, and just hugging her and just like freaked out and whispering in her ear, like, what the heck just happened? Like, I am so, and now I have to put a smile on and like act like that was the most spiritual experience of my life. I'm like, no.
It's like bizarre and ritualistic. It's like, I appreciate rituals. I appreciate traditions within families and all of that. Like my sweetie is Jewish, so there's a little bit that goes on in rituals and culture within Judaism. But it's creepy. I mean, religion as a whole, to me, this is Lyndsay speaking, religion as a whole is very creepy to me. And it kind of circles back to me being agnostic, because I just don't believe that any of us actually fucking know what actually is going to happen when we die. And I know all these people with ND, with their near-death experiences, they've got their NDEs and they do their thing and they say everything is just a floating body of light and love. I mean, that's all that you ever hear. Great. I have not heard, like, you know what, you're going to go over here because you were a little bit naughty, Lyndsay, because you were drinking Topo Chico on a Friday at 12, whatever. Like it's such, for me, it made me feel like I was an awful human from such a young age. Yeah. And I was a little girl. Like, how could I already feel like everything that was in my thoughts or in my bod or in my brain or whatever was already tainted? No matter what I was going to do, it was going to end up being wrong. And so I know that a lot of that drove my perfectionism. I know that it drove a lot of people pleasing. I know that it drove me to do a lot of sex, because I always wanted approval. It wasn't even about sex. It wasn't about guys. It wasn't about any of that. It was like, I just need to know that somebody on this planet is going to give me some love. And it's not because I followed some rule book that you told me I needed to. Yeah. So when you decided, when you're talking about this ritualistic and this bizarre behavior when you get married in the temple and you're a baby, you're 20 years old. We think 20 years old is old.
No.
It's not.
No.
It's not. Talk to me, 20-year-olds. Just a little bit. Yeah. 80s old. Yeah. So when you got through this whole place in your world where you were like, this isn't adding up, because it wasn't one defining moment for you. It was just kind of like here and there, all of these things were making you doubt. And I know doubt is scary, especially when it comes to religion, especially when you were as devout as you were as well. So what did you do? I mean, you finally got like, okay, I don't want to do this anymore. So what did you do?
Yeah, well, I mean, again, I can't go through all of it, right? But I don't.
No.
When I did finally divorce my ex, right? When I did finally divorce my ex, I was still trying to find community and find connection.
Sure.
And I just really noticed, like, I just like kept feeling like I was faking it. Like I started really feeling the dissonance because I'd already been doing some of this work, and so I think the hard step of like really moving away from that, it came from so much doubting myself all the time. Like, okay, is this who I am? Is this not who I am? Like I really couldn't even know who I was. And that identity piece being something that had always come from the religion, and I didn't know how to do it on my own. So I did eventually go to therapy to try and work on this. And I'd already been in and had an experience with therapy with this relationship, trying to save that marriage. Right. So that was my first real experience with therapy. Mm-hmm. And I continued and went to another therapist. And when I started really dealing with my faith crisis, so that's what I was trying to do, is trying to find a safe place to be able to understand this, because I didn't have a new community. I couldn't go to my old community. I had divorced now, right? And I was like trying to rebuild everything. And I'm here in California now. So thank goodness, right? Because if I was in Utah, that would have been a whole different experience. But yeah, the therapist, so I would go to therapists and they would like say, oh, you mean like under the banner of heaven, Mormon? And I'm like, no, actually, because I'm still in it, right? I'm not out completely yet. And I'm like, that felt very offensive to me at that point in my journey. Sure. It felt very like invalidating. I'm like, you don't get me. I'm not one of these wacky Mormons that get such a bad name, and there is a lot of weird stuff, but that's where I was in that.
But there's weird stuff in every single damn religion. Mormonism is just a little wackadoo. Yeah, I mean, magic underwear is really where I kind of start to lose respect for you people.
I used to call them PKs. I did wear them. I called them passion killers, PKs. I'm all, no, this is the worst. Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh. Like we say dropping, like I'm going to drop my panties. Yeah. I don't even know what that would be like. You're like, can you wait, hold on 1 second. Wait, hold on. Can you get this button? There's like 17 of them back here. And then you can't even do anything after that anyways. Give me a break.
Oh my gosh. Did you know, like back in the olden days, this is like Mormon folklore undercover, they would have one that just had a hole.
I know. That's it. Because that's all we're worth. That's all we're worth is just this hole in the middle of your magic fucking underwear. There's no magic happening. Okay.
What are we even talking about? How is
and why? And how does any like sane mind go? Sure, that sounds legit.
Because you're brought up in that shit.
Let's do that.
Oh my gosh.
We have an Etsy store for her that has all of these old magic underwear for her.
Gross. It's been washed. Gross. It's been washed.
No, people don't. The creepy people don't want it washed.
They don't want the washed ones.
No, they don't. Oh my God. All right, salute to that one. Right, this is a fun episode. So we've gone to this.
Okay, yeah.
We knew this was going to get a little squirrely. It's okay. So you were bamboozled by religion. I mean, we've talked about that. We know about that. I'm going to bring us back. We're going to land this plane here. Okay. So when you're talking about, because we have to move on to how you left, why you left, and what you're doing now to support people like you. That's really what we need to get to here. But I mean, you're talking about like the transition from leaving that community that you knew and only understood and got bamboozled by that and being so confused at such a young age and having to leave, not knowing how to leave in the middle of having to do a divorce and also divorcing your religion. That's no easy feat to do. No. Everything that you knew crumbles but beneath you. And now you have to figure out how I'm going to build a foundation. How am I going? Is there anything real that I have been brought up in? Yeah. I mean, that would be what I would think you were asking yourself. Oh, definitely. And the rituals of all of the religious stuff. Like, what do I do? How do I take the good stuff from it? Because it's not all bad. How do you take
Right.
some of the good stuff from it and bring it into your fold and bring it into your new community of people, even if it's 2 people? How do you do that? How do you get out of it? So when you're talking about what you do for a living at your business, Sage, you help a lot of people work through this religious transition, faith crises. You've talked about this. So obviously we know, even through our shenanigans and our funniness, at the end of the day, we are talking about something serious, which is about we've got to get out of these places that are scary and that do not serve us and only harm us. So you're here now to help guide people, not just in this particular realm, but this is where you specialize in helping to not feel so goddamn gaslighted and manipulated, and the relinquishing that psychological control that comes with something like religion. That's where you step in to help people move from that space to a new space. So can you talk to us a little bit about how you've done that and how you're helping others now?
Yeah. You know, when I think about, I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I do mostly individual therapy, even though the title says marriage and family therapist. I do mostly one-on-one because it is a deep dive for an individual to look and see kind of what created that dependence on the religion. And it's really learning how to gain independence from that religion. It's almost like a parent-child relationship. The religion is always going to be the parent. They're always the ones telling you what to do, what not to do, how to do it, when to do it. And then you are the child, oftentimes feeling like, okay, I better make sure I do everything right so that I'm able to be part of this community, right? Or so that I
go to the different levels of heaven. You're going to go to the celestial, and you're going to go to all these different places.
It's all you want, right?
Yeah.
It's all you want. And I think it comes from a good place. Like, I think most religions come from a good place, but it gets tweaked in there somehow, right? So when someone is newly coming out of a religion, first of all, or a cult, it doesn't even have to be a religion. I've worked with people that come out of cults from any high demand religion, evangelical, many Christian denominations, lots of LDS people that I've worked with. First of all, like, I have to even have just the conversation of whether it feels safe for them to talk with me based on where I'm at. Oftentimes, for any of you that have gone to therapy, therapists don't talk about themselves. You're not there to hear about the therapist. There's not going to be this self-disclosure that happens. But when it comes to something like this, there's such a trust factor that has to be there. I have to tell them kind of where I am on that line. Am I a non-believing, am I a true believing Mormon that has the ability to hold space for their nuance? Am I completely out of the church? And, people are going to make their decision based on their comfort level, because it is very, very challenging for anyone to take that leap. Because oftentimes this faith crisis has been going on even in like their subconscious, for little moments, little things that have all built to this. And it takes so much courage to be able to even say anything out loud. And it is so scary, and you don't know who you can trust. So that's really important. And it's, oftentimes I get clients who want to come to me and say, okay, just tell me what to do. Right. So then here they go trying to give their power away, because that's what they're used to doing. And a lot of that work is teaching them and giving that back to them and saying, that's not my role. I'm not your God.
It's your
I'm
choice.
not your parent. But I can certainly hold space for you to do that. And so that's something that comes up a lot, is being able to give that back to them, because it feels very scary to not have all the answers anymore. Right. Because religion does that for people. It gives you answers. It gives that brain of yours that wants all the answers. It gives it something to chew on. It tells you, like, here's how you do it, and this is how you get to the end level, and here's how you up level, and here's how you do all the game cheats, right?
Yeah.
But what you need to do is get into that uncertainty and the trueness of how life is, which is all gray area. None of us fucking know.
I don't fucking know what the hell's going on.
I sure as hell know I can help you figure it out. Like, I believe
I can help you figure it out, but I don't have any of my shit figured out. Okay.
Well, I go to my therapy to figure my shit out.
I do that too. Right. Yeah.
So it is a process, girl, and it is a beautiful, transformational, amazing thing to watch clients go through. I mean, the clients that I work with, I typically do work more long-term, because we're talking about unprogramming ways of thinking and being and responding. And, you know, a big part of it that is so challenging is that loss of community. So even after someone has gotten over the whole like loss of what I believe in, there's this loss of faith even in humanity that happens. And it feels so scary to believe that you can make friends and create a community that are not in the same faith as you, right? That there's
right. Yeah.
One.
They're not in the club. And you're like, wait a second, I can actually like chit chat with her over there and like, you know, hang out. I never experienced from a religious perspective, I did not have any sense of community whatsoever. So for me, I was always felt like an outcast no matter what. I still do, quite frankly. I'm kind of like an outlier kind of a person. I'm just this weirdo alien that was placed on this planet. We're not 100% sure what she's up to, but she's doing something grand. God bless America.
Some cool shit,
Something's happening over here.
Like
but no, I never really had any true direction. I always say I was never given a map at birth. I kind of felt like I was always thrown into the wolves and I didn't know. Yeah. I do know that there is a movie that we had to watch. I went to private Christian school through the middle of 8th grade and from preschool through the middle of 8th grade. And there was a movie that was shown that was, I wish I remember the name of it. But it was basically the scariest movie you could possibly show a child about what will happen to you if you do not believe in God and follow his rules.
Oh my
goodness. It's the end of times, right? So it's like these like scorpion flying like horse things that are spitting fire out, and all these cars are like, to this day, I'm not even kidding, when COVID happened and my sweetie and I we were living in Burbank. We were up there for a million years, but anyways, we were living in Burbank and it was COVID and we had fire season in Southern California simultaneously to COVID, so it was empty on the freeways and it looked like Armageddon. The first thing that came to my brain was that movie when I was driving down the 405 or the 101 or whatever I was on. And it was like, oh my God, I made it. I was like, I'm either in hell or I'm in heaven. I'm not sure. But it was so weird that it took me back to that scary movie when I was in, I don't know, 2nd or 3rd grade. And so that scary. Kind of, it is for because it was,
to be shown to feel the fear of everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's basically what's the last book of the Bible? What is it? I'm terrible at this. Genesis is the first one.
Revelation. Sorry, I was going through them in my head. I'm like, I got to start at the beginning.
Okay, there's like 142 books. All right, everybody start drinking right now.
There's a song to it.
Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. There isn't a Lyndsay or an Emily book, which there should be. But anyways, Revelation. So at the end of it, it's like the end of the world. And that is what we were taught. At least I was taught in my schooling and in my churches, was that it's the end of the world. This is what's going to happen. And if you don't jump on this bandwagon and you don't believe what we're telling you to believe, the way we want you to believe it, you're going to behave the way you're going to behave. You are going to hell.
Yeah.
And my mother... and she doesn't listen to the show, but if you're listening right now, Thanksgiving a couple years ago, she said in front of my entire family, matter-of-factly, you are going to hell, Lyndsay.
Oh my God.
I know. I've got a really great support team on that whole side of things.
So glad she knows everything about your
everything.
life.
Everything.
Where you're going to go.
And also knows that for sure. I know. Like, where is it? Am I going to be, what can I wear? The clothes, like, are they going to be ragged?
Can she give you a few more details? I mean,
do I get a window?
Dragonfly wings? I mean, like in the movie. Or
I don't know if any of you have watched Lucifer on Netflix, but if you haven't, it is the most amazing show to masturbate to. So I had to get you while you were drinking.
I almost spit out my Topo Chico.
I know. Oh God damn it, Lyndsay. I'm going to hell. In a handbasket, they say. So okay, so you bring these people in and they come to where they've lost this feeling of community. They've lost their faith. They've lost like faith in humanity, everything that they knew, and you're here to help guide them and be like, dude, you're going to be okay. How do you do that? How do you compartmentalize your own experiences? Do you use those to like, do you say like, hey, I've been there, I've done that, I understand? Like, how do you do that? Because I'm not a therapist. God bless America. I shouldn't be. Can you imagine me as a therapist?
Hey, you would probably be an amazing therapist. You get people. You really get people. No, the training as a therapist is, really not to self-disclose. So like I said, the beginning part, like I will mention kind of where I'm at because they need to know if I'm safe, like enough to step in and unveil everything. But no, it's really a journey for them to uncover and unfold. It's a space where, there's so many different types of therapy and ways to do therapy. I come from the mind frame of psychodynamics. So we are kind of unfolding some of the things from their past, but it's really informing like, well, what's happening today? Like, how is that impacting you today? So we're not like spending all this time tromping around in the past. We're looking at how that past is informing what's going on today. So sometimes I will incorporate a little bit of EMDR. I'm not sure if you're familiar.
And our listeners are as well. Yeah.
Processing. So because sometimes there are specific traumas that have to do with religion, or things in life can happen that are traumatic. And then you have like a big upset and you're like, why am I having a big upset? This wasn't that big of a deal. But it's like, oh, actually that was like this other trauma that's now coming forward and like deciding to make its big debut. Fun time. So
surprise, I'm having a nervous breakdown today.
Right. You're like, that's not supposed to happen.
What is happening? I'm just going to go to hell.
So, but a lot of it really is just being patient and holding that sacred space is what I call it. Just really a space for them to be themselves, to show up and bring in what's happening for them. So we're talking about whatever the client is dealing with presently, like what is troubling them, what's happening. A lot of times it's relational. People are having difficulty with the maybe members of the church that are still active and now they're not, and how they're being treated and these sorts of things. But it's a slow but sure process that happens. It's a transformation that you can't put a finger on it. You can't really explain it. But when you have a space that is safe enough for you to just bring in what's happening, slowly by little, you really rebuild that identity and start to have a self-esteem and a self-confidence that is based on what you want to base it on. You get to redefine the rules. You get to recreate and have your freak out moments when it feels too scary to keep going, and then come back and just kind of keep reminding yourself that you get to be in the driver's seat, because most people don't want to be in the driver's seat, to be honest. Like, people want other people to tell them what to do, right? That's hard.
I don't know how to feel that way.
Control. Yeah. It's so
I'm always the driver.
Just do this, right?
I'm not that. So I don't identify with that at all. Like, literally, those of you who are listening, some of you might be watching. I don't know why you're watching a podcast instead of listening to it, but that's on you. I jumped on the bandwagon in January, so here I am doing it. But I am like such a control freak. So that to me, like, you saw my eyes kind of like rolled back for a second and I almost blacked out. I'm like, what do you mean I don't want control? I want so much control that it's to my detriment. So that's something that I'm working with within myself, and that's for a whole different show.
And I do think I'm not saying that all people coming in from this experience want to. I think sometimes it's subliminal, though, and the way that it can show up is like wanting to be in control all the time and not being able to give that control over. But there's this like desire to keep getting it right and keep like that perfectionism, I think, can be the thing. Right.
That is.
And that's, you're in charge and you're doing that. So it is a nuanced thing. But,
it is nuanced, and that's a good word choice. Yeah. But I get it. So like when we talk about controlling, and that's something that I do struggle with from OCD, and I'm controlling. But when you say that in that way, you're right. It's not necessarily that I want like control over things. I just want to feel like I'm under control. Yeah. Like I've figured it out. None of us have anything figured out, guys. None of us do. All right. We're doing the best that we can. And when you come from religious trauma, you come from any kind of trauma whatsoever, your trust, your truth, and your safety are on the line. And so we're always going to be a little bit apprehensive to anything that we walk into, no matter what you come from, whether it's a religious something or other, whether it's a physical abuse, whatever it might be. Anything that's scary is scary. So leaving something that all you've known in your life is this, and then you walked out like you did, and then you've got people that come in and work with you to help them do the same thing. That's pretty awesome that you're able to create that space for people, because it's not easy to do, because trusting people and feeling safe is probably one of the hardest jobs that we all have to do. It's my personal opinion. I know safety is a big issue for me. So it's very hard for me to feel safe all the time. And so that's something that with this show has made me feel more safe, because I've found people like you that actually make me feel more safe, and give me the space right now while we're talking to help others feel safe in what they might be going through. So that's why you're here. You're here to really help me. This is really just all about me here.
I love to create that safety.
Ooh, and I already completely identified all of my religious issues. And what's a bummer about it is I actually don't think it's all that terrible. Like you had mentioned about how there are things within religion that come from a good place. I think that initially is where it all kind of comes from. But I don't understand putting explosive on my chest and blowing my body up because of it, so when we go down the road of religion versus belief systems and how we treat other people and how good we can be to this world, I think at the end of the day that's really what religion kind of started from. But it got all twerked over all of these years to make it not be what it was originally meant to be. And I'm not a theologist, nor do I want to be.
Well, and I think that's also part of that healing process. I think for, you kind of think about, there's a variety of ways to divorce something or someone. Yes. And one of the ways would be, we're not going to have any contact at all. I don't want to have anything to do with you. And then maybe later on, maybe we can be friends, kind of a thing. So I feel like that kind of happens with the religion is I need to not have anything to do with you. I don't think you gave me anything good. You've only hurt me. You've only caused pain and grief in my life. Right. So I think it took a long time to be able to start going back and integrating, for me personally, and this is what I see with my clients too, to start integrating okay, there are some good values that I still hold dear to me that the religion gave me. I feel like that religion taught me, some things about good work ethic, for example, or integrity or honesty, things like this that, a little bit overkill, a little bit on the over the bell curve side of things.
Yeah, so certainly loyalty.
yeah, huge.
Too much loyalty.
How do you, how do you
balancing that?
Balance it out and start to feel for yourself, kind of where you want to have that. But that takes some time. It takes some time to be able to look back. And same with an ex or something. It's when you're so angry and so hurt and all of this, you don't even want to think about them. You want to pretend that relationship never happened.
Right.
Just,
please.
Go to that whole thing. Yeah. But it's no, that relationship taught me, and I did love that person once. And I feel that way now. I can look back and say, I really loved my religion, and it was like losing a relationship, really and truly, because I really loved being LDS when I was LDS, and I didn't know how it was hurting me. And there's still people in my family who are very devout and very involved. And to be able to get to the place where I can be okay with that and not need them to come to the other side either in order for me to feel okay, to be able to separate that and say, this is good for you because you say it's good for you. Even though I look in and I might see some ways that I don't think it's good for you, but I'm not you.
Sure.
And that's not my life. Right. So that takes some work as well, because sometimes you come to the other side and you want to just do the same thing, but over on the dark side, you want to I'm going to deconvert everyone, and I'm going to make sure they know the truth and they know the lies and they know all the pain. And that's not helpful either. That's part of that grief process that comes up.
Yeah. And I would think that you would get probably a fairly negative response from people if you were immediately going out like, you got to get out of this, you got to leave this, everything you've known is now dead to you. Like, that's scary in and of itself. I don't care how old you are or how indoctrinated you are into your faith or your belief system, whatever it might be. It's a scary place to navigate, and it definitely is. It's tough during the holidays when we're all around family and we're all so divided, especially here in the United States from a political perspective. But then you add religion on top of it, which also feeds into our politics as well, unfortunately. And so it's like, well, shit, like, I am not a bad person. I am so proud of who I am. Have I made some really bad mistakes? Absolutely. And I'm so glad I did, because they've made me who I am, good, bad, and ugly. But I don't have many regrets in my life. I would say maybe 2 or 3. Amazing. That's not too bad. That doesn't mean that there aren't things that are regrettable. let's put that on the record. But do I regret them? Not necessarily, because I took them all as learning opportunities to make me be a better human, to make me love harder, to make me cry harder. I cry all of the time. Like, it's just what I do. I weep for everyone. I'm Jesus, guys. I'm Jesus.
You are so righteous.
You are so righteous. Do you know that you just aged us? Thank you. I'm shaking my head and she's laughing at me.
Oh, you're funny.
Don't make me bust out the tampons.
See?
Only she and I know this.
I knew it.
You give this girl a Topo Chico, everything's flying all over the place. Oh my God. Okay. So because you and I can talk forever. So when we're talking about leaving our religion, so let's just say we've got somebody that's listening right now that is like on the fence. They're going, oh my God, my whole life. And this isn't just, you don't just do this for people that are leaving LDS. You're talking about faith as a whole. You're talking about religion as a whole. You just happen to have been through the LDS side of it.
Right. Exactly.
So when you've got these people that are like, well, you had mentioned like, oh, that's not a cult, but that's just a religion. I think that people have a different viewpoint on religion versus cult. Because in my brain, a lot of times religion is cult. So like the differentiation between those. But when you've got somebody that's listening, they're in their car, they're like, I got to pull over right now because I don't know what the hell I need to do with my life right now, because they're in the middle of a religious identity crisis. What can we say to them right now? Like, what can they do right now in this moment if they're feeling this way? They're feeling like they're uncertain. They're feeling like they might need to get out. They might. What do we say to these people right now? What can we do?
Yeah, I mean, the hardest thing is the way forward and trusting yourself, right? And so it's trusting that little nudge that you're getting that's saying, hey, look at this a little bit more, or that's making you feel a little bit uncomfortable when you're having, a conversation with someone in the church, or having, some piece of doctrine that's coming at you, and just allow that discomfort to come forward, allow that in. And allow yourself to feel that. I think that's really important, is to start to build that trust with yourself. If you don't feel like you have it, it begins by just little moments like that, where you say to yourself, okay, I hear you. I'm listening, right? Or I'm going to take that, and I'm not just going to ignore that. I'm going to allow space for that. And so that's what I would say, is to really start to build that trust within yourself, because I really believe that you will guide yourself where you need to be. And if where you need to be is still in that church and still dealing with cognitive dissonance and feeling that that's okay, that's where you're going to be. And is it painful? Absolutely. It's much easier to be on the other side of anything, whether you're all in the church or whether you're all out of the church. The ambivalence in between, that gray area, is so much more painful and uncomfortable. But there is a way to the other side of that. And it is really going to be by knowing yourself. That's going to be the way. It's not by talking to this person, talking to that person, trying to read your scriptures more, trying to pray harder. Like, you are the one ultimately that makes the decision to stay in the church, to get out of the church, to be out of religion completely, to be atheist, to be whatever it is that you want to be. But it is that relationship with yourself, I think, that comes first.
I'm at a loss for words, which is the first time. So let's calendar that. You just made me feel safe to come and talk to you, even though I already felt that way. But I feel safe to talk about my issues with that. And I love that you use the word ambivalence. It's one of my favorite words on the planet because I've lived as an ambivalent person for a lot of my life. And it came to the point of actually me starting this show where I actually stepped into my truth. And by doing so, I empowered myself and I gave myself a voice that I have muted for, well, do the math, carry the 1 to the 2. I'm not going to do my age here, nor math. But it took me a really long time to get to a place where I was like, fuck it. I've got to share my story and I don't care what it does. And I don't know how far up on the mountain my shit's going to roll down, but I will take responsibility for it. In the meantime, this is such a wonderful place. And I'm so happy that you joined this space with us because it is a place where we are giving the opportunity for people to feel safe and to be expressive and to be vulnerable and to be raw and to be who they are and not be scared about it. Yeah. I mean, because I think the fear of religion is so real. I mean, it's real for us when we're not even, I'm not a religious person. Religion is freaking scaring the shit out of me all over the world. Think about it. Like it is scary. And so when people are thinking, you know what, I've got to jam out of this, that fear is where you come in and make people feel safe. And that's just wonderful.
Well, thank you. You're so sweet. And I just appreciate what you're doing. This whole thing about creating safe spaces is like what I just keep hearing today. And that's exactly what you do. I mean, with all of these different interviews that you have around helping people feel more safe so that they can understand what's going on for them with their pain or with whatever else is going on and all the different facets that you cover. I mean, that is the journey, is for us to know ourselves so that we can feel better, so that we can allow that in a little bit more. Because like religion doesn't really do a great job of allowing it in, even though that's the goal. Like be up here and be super righteous and be super spiritual. But meanwhile, you're like lost in like control land of like trying to
but also don't be you in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, it's such
be what I want you to be. I'd love for you to be in a pink long sleeve dress with a braid. I mean, this is the goal for me, for all women across the world. Don't even get me started. All right, my little sage soul. I know. And we are out of time, and I am so bummed that we are, but salute to you, my darling, my little Topo Chico.
Oh my gosh. In real life soon.
Yes, real life soon. I know. And we live like 7 seconds away from each other. We've never even met in person. It's ridiculous. But anyways, thank you again so much for your time with us. I really appreciate your time and you doing you.
Well,
that's all that matters is us being you. You can find our beautiful Emily on Sage Wellness Center. It's not spelled out. It is Sage, SAGEWELLNESSCTR.org, sagewellnesscenter.org, and Sage Wellness Center on Insta and Facebook. You can find her all over the place. If you need to find her and you can't, please reach out to me. I am super helpful here. That's what we do here. You are exclusively invited to share this safe space to be you, and to trust yourself. VIP pain journey together. Let's get to the heart of how to heal with you by my side. Do you know someone who needs to hear this conversation today? Did you need to hear this? Do you live in chronic pain or know somebody who does? Do you know somebody that's dealing with religious trauma? They're scared to hop out. Send them our way. Welcome to the Pain Game Podcast. Let's connect and hear stories of strength and grit. I am here to help provide a safe place to be vulnerable and honest while sharing your powerfully amazing stories. Please follow the Pain Game Podcast wherever you digest your podcast content. We will be here. Visit us at thepaingamepodcast.com and follow us on all the socials. Thanks for listening, my little VIPs. Catch you on the other side.